What if the Night King attacked King's Landing, not Winterfell? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. The North braces for annihilation. Winterfell's ramparts are lined with soldiers, Unsullied in rigid formation, Northmen clutching dragonglass weapons, Dothraki restless at the edges of firelight, pits of pitch and oil smolder, ready to be lit, dragons circle overhead, their shadows flickering across snowy fields, and yet the dead do not come. Far off in the distance, lit by moonlight, the faint line of the Night King's gigantic host of undead is visible, a tide of pale bodies moving silently through the night. They divert entirely around Winterfell on both sides, giving the castle a wide berth. High above the army of wights, the zombified Viserion glides amongst the clouds with eerie calm. On his back sits the Night King, unmoving, his cold blue eyes staring down at Winterfell as they pass. He studies the castle's walls and watchtowers as if measuring the worth of the place. He lingers only for a moment, his expression unreadable, before he continues to guide his army southward. On the battlements of Winterfell, Jon Snow leans forward, his fists tightening on the stone. Their plan has failed. The undead have chosen not to engage the army of the living, but instead continued southward, towards the ignorant kingdoms below.
He's ignoring us. We gathered all our forces to fight him here and now, but the Night King is continuing south, like we aren't here.
He fears our dragons. He knows that he cannot win here, even though he's taken Viserion from me. We are still 2 against 1.
If that army continues south, the rest of the 7 kingdoms will be slaughtered. Cersei hasn't taken the threat seriously. She's unprepared.
We can pursue him, Jon. If the Night King lures our forces into an open field, we will be slaughtered by the sheer numbers.
Even though this is a grim turn, the living can only watch as the great gray tide of rotting bodies vanishes beyond the reach of their torchlight into the dark night. The pit in each of their stomachs deepens. The Starks and the Targaryens prepared all of their forces for this fight, but it will not happen here. A council is immediately called in Winterfell's Great Hall, where the forces of the living gather to discuss what must be done.
We should pursue him regardless of the disadvantage. We hold dragonglass, Valyrian steel, and dragons. It's dangerous, but what is the alternative? To let the White Walkers slaughter everyone in the south and return with an army 10 times the size it is now. In the open, we lose every single advantage we have. It might feel like the right thing to do, but pursuit would mean our slaughter.
It is difficult to accept it, but it is the truth. The Night King can't be followed. He holds the numbers, and in the cold of the night, the forces of the living would be blinded by blizzards and swarmed by countless wights. Silence falls over the hall. The reality is nearly unbearable. By maneuvering around Winterfell, the Night King has forced them into inaction. They cannot chase him. They cannot stop him. Jaime is silent, but inside him, his emotions war. He hates Cersei, and yet he also loves her. He once loved her more than anything else in this world. Now he can do nothing as an army of death marches to her. Brienne tries to comfort him, but he only regards her coldly. The entire court of Winterfell is paralyzed with indecision and fear. Across the snow-swept plains of the north, the dead move like a single living organism, endless ranks of corpses stumbling across frozen marches. The moon shines overhead as the only light in the endless dark that the White Walkers have brought, and a blizzard rages around the perimeter of the army. The Night King leads in silence, seated atop Viserion's pale back, the whited dragon's wings cutting through the frigid air. His expression is unchanging, but in his mind, memories churn. Once, he was a man of the First Men, a hunter, taken from his clan during the wars against the Children of the Forest. He remembers the night sky above him, the way the stars blurred through his tears as the children bound him to the thick trunk of a ghostly white weirwood. The children whispered of bringing balance. They sung of vengeance against the invaders who burned their trees and slaughtered their people. He was their answer. Ancient, wrinkled, and hobbled greenseers sung in a strange language that sounded like blowing wind, running rivers and cracking ice as a dagger was raised. Dragonglass pierced his heart, and his blood ran red-hot before turning blue and cold. His scream of agony froze in the air, and his eyes suddenly opened, calm and blue. The children gave the man, the Night King, a single command: cleanse the world of men and reset the balance of the world. The decades that followed brought a near-endless winter. The Night King fought against the living, but eventually his creators turned against him. They tried to destroy what they had created when they realized how horrible his power truly was. His ranks grew as he created more beings like himself, the White Walkers. While the command never left the Night King, it twisted, It became his own. He still sought to wipe the world clean, but not for the sake of the children. He had been a man once, and he had seen the cruelty they were capable of. The world was rotten, and it would always be rotten until the core was cut out. The Night King has no love for mankind, but he has one quirk that perplexes even the other White Walkers. Perhaps it is a lingering trace of humanity, or perhaps it is a cruelty of a different kind. Infants are spared. As his army sweeps past the ruins of the Dreadfort, through the frightened villages of Boltonland, he spares one, save for the youngest. Adults and even older children are torn apart and raised again to join his army. But when the White Walker lieutenants bring forth crying infants and newborns, he does not kill them. He touches each small forehead with a single icy finger. The children's cries falter, turning into silence, but they do not die. Their eyes become a haunting blue, and they stare up at the Night King with silent obedience. His White Walkers leave to carry them back northward, beyond the shattered wall, into the heart of winter. To him, it is not merely a mercy. It is a necessary part of his ultimate plan. The dead reach the sprawling city of White Harbor under a pale and uncaring moon. The Manderleys can do little to repel such numbers. The guard of the city make an effort because it's all they can do, but the walls crumble beneath the press of corpses. Ships try to flee from the harbor. Frost spreads across the water, hardening the waves into jagged ice. People jump from the trapped ships, shattering on the ice below only to rise again mere moments later as undead wights. It is not long before the entire city succumbs to silence and the Night King's army swells in size. The march continues southward, and the neck is swallowed by the all-encompassing blizzard. Marshes freeze into the icy plains. The Crannogmen try to vanish deeper into the bogs, but they are hunted down and dragged screaming from their hideouts into the undead horde. The Night King watches the slaughter as it continues into the riverlands, his army hugging the shadow of the mountains of the moon but still encountering countless villages. He takes no joy from their deaths, but they do not disturb him either. This is merely what he must do. As Viserion carries him southward, the Night King lifts his eyes. From his height, he can see the shimmer of rivers, the glow of villages, the scattered lights of humanity across the dark canvas of Westeros. Each one is a fire he intends to snuff out. His army moves unstoppably toward the capital, the great hive of men. 1 million souls waiting to be harvested. And he remembers that weirwood, that shard of dragonglass, and the pain it brought him, and the whispered words of his creators. Cleanse the world of all men. The capital teems with life. 1 million souls crowd King's Landing's streets. Merchants peddle their wares. Septums cry of the evils of war, and soldiers nervously man the walls. To the small folk, the threat in the north seems like a distant children's tale. The queen promises safety and security under her rule, but the air grows colder each day. From a balcony high in the Red Keep, Cersei Lannister surveys the city. The black water glitters in the morning sun. Its water is dotted with the galleys of the Iron Fleet. Euron swaggers up beside her, smelling of salt and wearing a dark smile. Cersei clutches her pregnant stomach, her breath frosting in the air. She makes to speak, but something changes before their eyes. The morning sun, once bright and shining, begins to fade beneath an encroaching wave of clouds. On the horizon, a horde of moving corpses crests a distant hill. In the darkening sky, the silhouette of a dragon becomes visible.
The dead are actually here. I thought that the North and the dead would all kill each other. There are so many of them.
Cersei does her best to contain her fear, but this is not the fight that she expected. Even if the dead had arrived, she expected their numbers to be culled down by the efforts of the North looking into the press of approaching bodies that covered the landscape of the Crownlands for miles. It is clear that that is not the case. Euron steps closer, resting a hand lightly on Cersei's shoulder, his grin still present.
I know magic, my queen. These bodies cannot move without one who commands them. That figure atop the dragon is the key to all of this, and with his death, the rest of his army will follow.
And you believe that you can do that? That you can kill such a being?
I've studied death and magic longer than any man alive. If anyone can bring down this Night King, then it will be me. We have already prepared to shoot down 2 dragons, and he only possesses one. When his dragon is dead, I will take his head and present it to you.
Cersei swallows, hand tightening on her stomach. Her eyes leave the shape of the dragon as it maneuvers through the sky, growing ever closer. It isn't long before the small folk can look up and see Viserion wheeling in the dark sky. Snow falls on King's Landing as a wave of blistering cold washes over the city. As the dragon approaches, all can see that it is broken. His wings are tattered, his scales pale and rotting, and its screech shakes the very foundations of the city. Upon its back sits a rider with eyes like frozen stars. The Night King has come. Viserion dives, blue fire spilling from his maw. Freezing flames roll over the battlements of King's Landing. The cold so intense it causes the soldiers it hits to explode into frozen viscera. Scorpions desperately fire on the undead beast, but it dives and rolls, deftly avoiding each bolt under the Night King's silent command. From the sea, White Harbor's ships appear, drifting eerily silent through the frigid bay. The Iron Fleet engages them, but as soon as they dock to fight, hundreds of corpses spill from below deck and swarm the Ironborn sailors. Stolen ships crash into the piers, spilling wights onto the wharves. Panic erupts in the city. Bells toll. Too late. Small folk crush each other in the streets, and gold cloaks abandon their posts, but there is nowhere to run. On the walls, Euron Greyjoy watches with mad glee as wights run toward the city. The dead climb over each other in a rolling tide of death.
Yes, this is the storm that I was promised. Bring your magic, and I will take it for myself. Come, demon. Let's see if you bleed like the rest of us.
Viserion lands upon the scoured walls. The Night King dismounts, frost spreading under his feet as he lands across from Euron. Momentarily, even the Ironborn captain is stunned into silence by his boldness, though it isn't long before he draws his blade and readies himself. The Night King sidesteps a thrust of Euron's blade and brandishes his own icy crystalline sword. Euron ducks under a slash, and the two clash, Euron cackling madly in the stoic, unchanging face of the Night King. Around them, wights begin to spill over the walls. Thousands of corpses press against the stones, causing them to creak and bend on the verge of collapse. The mortar sealing the walls together breaks away with a tremendous crash. The wall begins to crumble in places and give way for the unrelenting tide of the dead. Some soldiers try to fight, but most run, along with the crowds of helpless small folk. All of them are run down, torn to pieces, and rise again to join their killers. Euron and the Night King are uninterrupted in their duel, continuing to clash on one another, the last unbroken section of the wall. Euron moves like a whirlwind of steel, but no move he makes is enough to make the Night King falter. Dodging another slash, Euron draws a dagger of dragonglass and attempts to slam it into one of the Night King's eye sockets. The dagger is slapped from his hand, and the next strike from the crystal sword shatters Euron's own blade. A kick to the stomach knocks Euron down, and a red gash opens across his chest as the Night King slashes him. Euron looks up, spilling blood and laughing maniacally.
Make me one of you. If I cannot take your power for myself, at least let me join you and see the ending of all things.
The Night King only stares. Then, unthinkably, a smile suddenly flickers across his frozen lips. He seizes Euron's head in both hands. As the pirate's mouth opens in surprise, his skull is crushed. The Night King walks calmly back to Viserion and raises a hand. A torrent of icy blue fire destroys the corpse, and when the flames cease, nothing remains of Euron. Viserion takes to the air again, with his master upon his back, circling above the city. His blue fire scours neighborhoods, consuming civilians in droves. Entire districts of the capital are razed to the ground, while the rest are choked with the dead. In the Red Keep, the court erupts into chaos. Nobles scream, demanding some way to escape. But there is no escape. Blackwater Bay has begun to freeze, and the city is surrounded on land. Cersei tries to stand tall, though her hands still tremble. Robert Strong is at her side, as the dead and wights flood her city. Her hands stroke at her stomach, knowing what must be done. From the highest tower of the Red Keep, the view is apocalyptic. The bay is now frozen solid, cluttered with broken ships. The streets are clogged with bloody wights. The ruins of the Dragon Pit and the Great Sept of Baelor are now matched by the rest of the city. Over it all, Viserion shrieks, raining frost and death. Soon, though, the undead dragon lands again, and the army of the dead parts before their king. His gaze fixes upward, toward the Red Keep and the throne that waits within. King's Landing is no longer a city. The streets overflow with the wights. Their groans echo through the alleys. From her balcony, Cersei grips a stone railing, the smoke rising from her city stinging her eyes. Every scream from below causes her to flinch. All around her, barrels of wildfire have been piled high. Qyburn waits nervously with a small gaggle of pyromancers, all ready to light them. It isn't long before footsteps echo through the palace, and the doors to the throne room are calmly pushed open. The Night King enters with long, elegant strides. His razor-sharp ice sword drips with the blood of the guards that he has slain to get here. Cersei turns to face him, her expression defiant, even in fear.
You will get nothing from me but ashes. I do not truly know what you are, except that you are little more than a fairy tale come to life. You are merely some children's spook, and you do not frighten me. Sir Robert, kill this abomination.
Sir Robert does not reply. He stands completely still beside his queen. The Night King regards both with a look that betrays no emotion. Cold realization dawns upon Cersei.
Do it, you fools. Light the wildfire now.
The pyromancers are too slow to move. Sir Robert serves a new master now, and his gigantic greatsword cleaves through each of the pyromancers with brutal efficiency before any of their torches can touch the wildfire. Cersei moves to do it herself, but the Night King catches her in his icy grip. A hand, as cold as death itself, grabs Cersei's face, and her panicked green eyes shift to an unfeeling blue. With that, King's Landing has fallen. The Queen has been defeated, and the dead rule the capital. The Night King approaches the Iron Throne and climbs each step with effortless grace. As he sits on the monstrosity of metal, White Walkers enter, each carrying a warped bundle. Hundreds of crying infants are brought forward, and the White Walkers carrying them kneel before their king. One by one, they stand and bring a baby up to the throne, allowing the Night King to touch a cold blue finger to their foreheads. Each touch is gentle and causes the crying to cease. The babies now stare with frozen blue eyes, hovering halfway between life and death. They are not wights, but neither are they quite White Walkers either. Viserion lands atop the tallest tower of the Red Keep, throws his head back, and lets out a deafening shriek of victory. All around the dragon, the magical blizzard grows and rains ice and sleet down onto the city. The wind carries Viserion's roar into the endless night. The forces of the north have traveled south after some hesitation, finding only desolate fields and villages for countless miles. Not even any bodies have been left behind by the dead. Still, the western half of the Riverlands remains intact, untouched by the dead, as if they had marched for the capital. The banners now snapping in the wind above Riverrun serve as a rallying point for the living. Northmen, Vale soldiers, Riverland knights, Daenerys' Unsullied and Dothraki, and even Asha Greyjoy's remaining Ironborn huddle inside Riverrun's walls. Dorne is too far, and the Reach and Stormlands are leaderless, but those who could be summoned now plan together for a desperate resistance against the dead. In the council hall of Riverrun, Jon and Daenerys preside over a tense meeting. Dothraki scouts returned, covered in frost and shivering, but alive. While scouting the perimeter of the capital, they could see Viserion even from a distance, perched and unmoving atop the tallest tower of the Red Keep. King's Landing is now held by the dead, their numbers swollen with the million souls that once lived inside its walls. Jon feels the weight of responsibility pressing down onto him. Millions are dead, all because his plan for defending Winterfell failed. Daenerys is there to support him, though, her will strong and her resolve nearly unshakable, even in the face of death.
We cannot fail. The very survival of humanity is on the shoulders of each and every man and woman in this hall. We still have our dragons, we still have our soldiers, and we still have our hope. If we fail to lead now, all will be lost.
Then we won't fail. Each of us has to fight like 10 men. We are outnumbered, but what else can we do but fight?
There is a possibility still remaining to us. The dead will keep coming as long as we kill them, no matter how many of them we burn. We simply don't have the supplies or manpower to outlast them. But the Night King is their strength and their weakness. They all follow his command. Without him, they may even all be destroyed.
Danny, you and I can kill them if that's the case. We both have dragons, and I have Longclaw. We will lure him out with our dragons. All of our forces can be gathered at Harrenhal, and when the Night King meets us there, we will destroy him together.
The rest of us will be bleeding on the ground while you fight him. Harrenhal is a strong castle, but even our combined forces are barely enough to man it with its enormous size. You will have to kill him quickly. Or, if you're too frightened, give me your dragons and I'll do it myself.
An uneasy laughter erupts through the hall, but it is short-lived. There is a grim battle left, the war to bring back the dawn. It is obvious that not every soul here will live to see the sun again, but the living have no choice but to stand and fight. While Edmure Tully, Robert Arryn, Sansa Stark, and Asha Greyjoy prepare to march their men to Harrenhal, Jon and Dany mount Rhaegal and Drogon. Jaime is silent the entire discussion, The woman he once loved, more than even life itself, is gone. He grips the hilt of his sword, then lets go, only to grip it again. His mind is spinning with hopelessness. If anyone has to kill the Night King, he wants it to be him. The two last living dragons fly side by side, their silhouettes dancing on the ground as they make for the capital. From his stolen throne, the Night King seems to sense their approach, hours before their arrival. When Jon and Dany do arrive, flying high above the city, both are horrified to see the state King's Landing is in. The streets swarm with corpses, and the walls are shattered and broken. For Jon, he cannot forgive himself for the massive loss of life. The fate of humanity was riding on his plan to defeat the Night King, and it all failed because the White Walkers didn't take the bait. For Daenerys, she despairs at the loss of the city and the people that were meant to be hers to protect and rule. She was meant to be Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, but now hardly any of it remains for her to protect. First, the wall fell, and now the very capital of the kingdoms itself. The two dragon riders unleash their sorrow and fury in torrents of dragon flame. The command of Dracarys is yelled again, and cones of fire obliterate hundreds of wights in each pass. Viserion, once unmoving atop its perch on the Red Keep, slowly begins to stir. His undead blue eyes snap open, and he lets out a blood-curdling shriek. Jon and Dany have done enough, and both turn their dragons to retreat. The Night King rises from his throne. He only has one last battle to fight before Westeros is shattered, and with the fall of Azor Ahai and their followers, the rest of the world will soon break. The previous incarnation of Azor Ahai tried to destroy him once, and failed. This time, when the Night King kills him for a second time, he will make sure it will be the last. The walls of Harrenhal shake under the cold winter that carries the distant groans of the dead. Across the riverlands, the army of the living assembles, banners flapping violently, shields braced, dragons looming overhead. Scouts atop the towers strain their eyes to the horizon, but they cannot even comprehend the scale of the approaching nightmare. The army of the dead comes in waves that never seem to end. The icy blue eyes of millions of corpses glint in the darkness. From a horde that stretches from the riverlands as any man can see, thousands upon thousands of corpses move with chilling synchronicity. They march with relentless purpose, the cold winds of the blizzard blowing fiercely all around them. Even Harrenhal looks diminutive in comparison to the sheer scale of corpses the Night King now commands. Leading them, horribly pale and hauntingly beautiful, are the White Walkers. Their icy armor reflects the white moonlight, their weapons glimmering with lethal blue magic. Above it all, a horrible shadow darkens the sky. Viserion beats his wings against the wailing winds, carrying the Night King upon his back. From this height, he surveys the living manning the battlements of Harrenhal, calculating. Blue fire lances down at his command, freezing the river solid and creating new bridges for his advancing army. Jon grips Longclaw tightly atop Rhaegal, knuckles white beneath his leather gloves. Beside him, Daenerys leans into Drogon's neck against the lashing cold, her eyes locked on the pale dragon soaring toward them. Viserion, once her son, has been twisted and turned against her. All that she can do for him now is offer him the mercy of a final death.
We have to draw him away now, Jon. We can't allow him to reach the walls.
Dany strains to allow her voice to carry above the howling wind. She tries to sound brave, but even she is afraid. Jon is too, but he nods, her words snapping him out of his own thoughts.
I'll follow your lead. We can do this together, Dany. The Night King falls here, no matter what it takes from us to do it.
As one, Drogon and Rhaegal lift into the air, their wings straining against the pelting blizzard, and creating gusts of wind that stirs the banners hanging from Harrenhal, volleys of arrow fire from the battlements, aiming below the dragons and carrying over the frozen fields. The storm of missiles vanishes into the endless army of the dead, barely making a dent each time. The Night King responds immediately to the approach of the two other dragon riders, silently commanding Viserion to dive at them with terrifying speed. The first clash looks almost like a dance to observers on the walls. Jon leads forward, Longclaw gleaming in his hand, as Rhaegal twists to avoid the deadly dive. He swings for the Night King, barely misses, and instead carves into the undead side of Viserion. The whited dragon shrieks with agony and rage. Drogon snaps at his turned brother with a scream of fury, teeth gnashing against rotting scales. A gust of blue fire nearly freezes one of Drogon's wings solid, but he turns just in time and answers with his own gout of black-red flame. The air crackles as fire and ice melt, lighting up the darkened sky. Steam rises into the black clouds above. Jon dives in again, Longclaw slashing out for the Night King. He raises an arm, manifesting a shield of solid ice that deflects the blow before shattering into crystal shards. He conjures a frozen spear next, hurling it at Rhaegar. The green dragon cries out in pain as it as it tears through one of his wing membranes, but he manages to keep in the air. More spears are hurled, and Drogon and Rhaegal twist in midair, dodging death with their agility, circling together and trying to protect their riders. They fight as one, but the Night King anticipates every single move with cold patience, waiting for the right moment to end this fight. Below, the living fight a desperate battle. Arrows tipped with shards of dragonglass pierce wights. Scorpions fire burning bolts into the horde. Everyone contributes, each hand holding a bow or crossbow regardless if they're even a soldier or not. Yet for every wight felled, 2 more rise in their place. Millions pour across the fields, waves upon waves crashing against the impossibly tall walls of Harrenhal. Every man and woman who falls becomes another enemy. The sheer scale is overwhelming. Jon and Dany coordinate silently in the air, shouting to one another only when necessary, guiding their dragons into tandem strikes. Rhaegal crashes into Viserion's flank. Drogon rakes the side of the undead dragon, fire and ice melting in explosions that shake the clouds. The Night King pivots in the air, eyes glowing, ice spear slashing through Drogon's wing. Dany screams as Drogon falters, talons scrambling against the sky to maintain altitude. Jon leans low, trying again and again to drive Longclaw into the Night King's side. Viserion retaliates, swinging a massive claw that snaps the saddle, sending Jon tumbling, but Rhaegal twists midair, catching himself as he falls, narrowly avoiding death. The battle rages for minutes that feel like hours. Each strike, each clash, threatens to unbalance the dragons and their riders. Fire burns ice, ice freezes fire. The sky becomes a storm of frost and flame, screaming and roars blending into one unbearable cacophony. Rhaegal and Drogon wheel in tandem, flames surging from their throats, a pillar of fire so fierce it blinds the battlefield below. For a heartbeat, the Night King is engulfed, his silhouette swallowed by the inferno. Hope sparks, flickers, then dies. The flames part. The Night King remains, untouched, his spear of ice raised high. He hurls it with supernatural precision. The spear pierces Rhaegal's chest. The dragon screams, wings locking in agony. Jon clings desperately as Rhaegal plummets, crashing into the frozen waters of the God's Eye with a thunder that shakes the land. Steam and shards of ice erupt skyward, and then silence. Jon drags himself from the water, coughing, half drowning, Longclaw still in hand. Rhaegal sinks beneath the ice, eyes dimming forever. Jon stumbles onto the shore, shivering, gaze locked upward as Drogon makes one final stand. Dany screams Dracarys, and Drogon surges, fire pouring from his maw and engulfing Viserion in full face. For a moment, the undead dragon falters, flesh peeling and bone cracking under the sheer heat. The Night King steadies him enough to retaliate, blue fire erupting point blank and overpowering Drogon until it swallows him. The dragon shrieks, wings snapping, body convulsing midair. Dany is thrown violently from his back, her gaze looking skyward with disbelief. As she reaches up, her body thuds into the snow. Viserion bites into Drogon's neck. One last burst of effort, Drogon bites back. He tears Viserion's head from his body, rotting sinew pulling apart, and the head flying free. The two beasts' bodies collide together and tangle in a freefall. As they plummet into the ground, they send up a great gust of snow. As Jon stumbles towards Dany's broken body, the Night King rises from the snow. His dragon is destroyed, but he is intact. He begins slowly walking towards Jon before a sword pierces into his side. Jaime Lannister, bloodied and panting, smiles as he pulls his sword back to strike again. The Night King stumbles back in pain, blue blood leaking from his side. He touches a hand to the wound and stares at his own blood with astonishment. As Jaime's sword strikes again, it is deflected and shatters into 1,000 shards. He still roars, trying again to attack with just his fists. The Night King catches a fist, then plunges his sword into Jaime's heart. Jaime is stunned, and before he goes limp, he whispers a woman's name. Moments later, Jaime rises again, eyes shining blue. The Night King tosses the corpse a blade of ice, and it catches it. Across the field, Jon holds a dying Daenerys.
Promise me, Jon. Promise me. You will kill him. You would make a great king.
Daenerys smiles and reaches a broken hand up to touch Jon's face. Before she can, the light dies in her eyes.
No. No. Dany, no. Please stay with me. Don't leave me.
Jon remembers Ygritte, how she died the same way in his arms. He cannot stay with her forever despite wanting to. The Night King approaches alongside the shambling corpse of Jaime Lannister. Jon raises Longclaw up and charges with a hoarse cry. He clashes blades with the Night King as the White of Jaime watches silently, stalking around them and waiting for his own chance to assist his new master. Sparks fly, and Jon strikes again and again. Each blow is desperate and wild. Another cry rises from the snow. Arya pounces from a tree, Valyrian's steel dagger in her hand, but Jaime's corpse deflects the attack and knocks the dagger from her hand. Jon is distracted as the Night King effortlessly parries each of his blows, his movements fluid and his victory seeming inevitable. Jon watches as Jaime plunges his sword through Arya's chest, then rips it free. He tries to call out her name, but the Night King's sword is next to plunge into his own chest. He breathes out a single broken gasp, and Longclaw falls from his hand. He collapses back into the snow, eyes staring up at the pale moon and dimming. His chest rises once, twice, then it is still. The Night King surveys the battlefield, silent. Around him the dead rise once more. Dany stirs, her body shuddering, eyes opening, but they glow a cold, unnatural blue. From the waters of the God's Eye, Rhaegal's corpse bursts forth, wings tattered, eyes alight with the same cruel fire. Drogon twitches, rising again as a beast of frost and ruin. Jon's body jerks violently, then stills, then rises to his feet, his eyes pale and glowing. Harrenhal quickly falls as the wights climb over each other, then pour over the walls and consume the living. The last fires of man are extinguished. The age of winter begins. The snows never stop. They fall soft and endless, until mountains are buried and rivers vanish beneath ice. The world grows pale, frozen in a hush that stretches for years, then decades, then centuries. King's Landing becomes a monument of frost. The once proud towers are sheathed in ice. The Red Keep, a jagged citadel of frozen stone. On the Iron Throne sits the Night King, unmoving, unblinking, his gaze fixed forever upon the empty hall. Time itself seems to come to a standstill. Beyond the shattered walls of the capital, the wights flood the continent. Villages freeze and crumble. Castles stand hollow, filled only with the dead. The wights, led by their White Walker captains, take the rest of the kingdoms. Even Dorne's scorching sands turn to snow. The great houses of Westeros are gone. And as the narrow sea freezes, Essos soon follows. Not all life perishes. Deep in the heart of winter, children grow. Not many, just a handful. Infants, once touched by the Night King, age as slow as a river carves stone. Their eyes pale and strange. They are not mindless like the dead, or cruel like the White Walkers, nor are they like humans. They are something else. They play among the snowdrifts. They breathe cold, but their laughter warm. Over the millennia, one such child wanders into the crumbling throne room of the Red Keep. His hair is white as frost, his blue eyes piercing. In his hand he carries something pulled from the ruins of Harrenhal, a sword of dark steel, black as night, with a white wolf's head carved into its hilt. Longclaw. The boy approaches the throne. The Night King stirs for the first time in centuries, lowering his gaze upon the child. His lips do not move, but the boy understands. A silent command has been given. The boy raises the blade awkwardly, his snow-pale hands trembling. He presses it against the Night King's chest. As the Valyrian steel sinks in, the Night King smiles. The sword slides deep. Ice cracks, and a shudder of magic runs through the hall. The shudder echoes across the world as the Night King shatters into pieces. Wights all over the continents fall where they stand, bodies crumbling into dust. The undead dragons collapse into unmoving piles. The endless blizzards cease. Snow gives way to silence. Silence gives way to the first ray of sunshine in countless ages. Green stems pierce the frost. Flowers begin to bloom. The sun fully returns, pale and shy, but nonetheless warm. The boy stands alone before the now empty throne, Longclaw still in his hand. His eyes, once blue, begin to change, fading to hazel. His breath now steams in the receding cold. Behind him, other children begin to gather, their pale blue eyes brightening into shades of green, brown, even gold. The world has been reset, and life begins to be born anew. The Iron Throne rusts and falls apart, everything it once stood for forgotten, all the bloodshed to claim it, all the lives lost in the pursuit of power, all now irrelevant. The boy turns from it, running into the new sunlight and laughing with the other children. Their voices carry across the ruins as the snows thaw. The age of men is forever gone, but life endures, and this time it is unburdened by the past sins of any forebears. The Night King succeeded, and humanity was reborn without the mistakes of the past. Never again will war scar the land, and never again will men bleed for a meaningless throne. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.